Hey guys, welcome to the Impact Podcast. So every Thursday at 6 o'clock we go live. Oh, there's our special guest. Awesome. So today we have a really special guest with us, you guys. We have Justin Ford. He is a husband, father, realtor, devoted Christian, and an author. Now, not only is he the lead broker of the Justin Ford real estate team, who hit top 5 real estate teams in the state of Michigan, producing 3.6 million closed volume within 3 months of his transfer to EXP. How's it going, Justin?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. We're so happy to have you. So let's dive in a little bit. What do you want to talk about?
I'm an open book. So, whatever you guys want to talk about, I'm always excited to talk about real estate, talk about Jesus, talk about family, you name it. So I'm going to let you guys bring it up.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So how long have you been in the real estate business? Let's start with that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been within the industry itself for 16 years, but I've been a broker for the last 8 years. I started off back in the mortgage business when I was 22 years old. So basically for my whole adult career, I've been in this industry. Started off in mortgages, did that for a handful of years, did really well. I went from 6 figures basically to no figures overnight. I got in at the tail end of the mortgage refinance boom. After that, then I moved over to doing short sales and loan modifications and credit repair. And once that kind of stabilized and the market started to go up, then I got my real estate license, actually my broker's license. Because of my mortgage and investing background, I was able to kind of hop over being just a real estate agent and get my broker's license. And so I got that back in 2013. So I've been selling real estate for about 8 years now.
Oh my gosh.
Very
You're
cool.
like a man of many hats. So many more extra hats than realtors have already.
Yep.
Seriously.
That's insane. Oh my gosh. So what got you involved in real estate? I mean, like what a mortgage background and everything, but what was your final deciding factor to just say, you know what, real estate's where I'm going to be?
I'll kind of dive a little bit deeper into it. So when I got into the mortgage business, I had just met my soon-to-be wife at the time, and I was working at a telemarketing firm raising money for the cancer fund. And I was always good on the phones. And I had a buddy who owned a mortgage company, and he reached out to me. He's like, "Man, you should come make calls here after work. I think you do really well." I said, "Great." So I'd do my 9 to 5 during the day, and then I'd go over there and make calls and set all these appointments for refinances. And within 2 weeks, I quit my job. That was actually the last hourly job that I had. Went into, doing mortgages, and, from being someone who grew up in a low to middle class home, really didn't have a lot of experiences or money growing up. So when I got into the mortgage business and I experienced my first 6 figures, man, I felt like I finally tasted the good life. And so I was so excited about, what was possible. I mean, went out and, bought a brand new car, bought my wife a car, we bought a house. We thought we really had arrived into making money. And so,
We
thought we had it. We were young and, ambitious and excited, but what we didn't know was, financial stewardship, saving, preparing for, a potential market crash, which we had no idea was coming. And, when the market crashed, I mean, it was very difficult for us. I mean, we lost our house to foreclosure. We went through bankruptcy. They repoed both of our cars, and we had to go live with my mom and get on food stamps. And I remember during that time, my wife was just, as any wife probably would, "Hey, you need to go get a job, right? We got kids, we got bills."
Figure it out.
I'm like, I'm not going to get a job. I'm going to build my business. But hey, what I will do is I'll deliver pizzas at night. I'll work all day on my business, and then I'll go deliver pizzas at night, because I had tasted what was possible, with commission sales. And so, after the mortgage crash, again, I got into short sales and loan modifications, and I didn't know about that when we were going through foreclosure. I probably would have taken a different route. And so, started helping people, do short sales all over the country, started doing loan modifications. So I began to work with real estate agents. And I'll be honest, I didn't like real estate agents. There was just I don't know, there was just this thing. I'm like, man, just real estate agents are just slimy and easy, and I want nothing to do with them. And it's so funny, God's sense of humor. Now I am a real estate agent, not a slimy or sleazy one, but
No.
That's God's way of saying, be careful what you spit up in the air.
right. So,
Yeah.
but it's kind of funny. So because when I was doing short sales and loan modifications, my mom, my dad, and several other people like, Justin, you'd be a great real estate agent. I'm like, no, I'm good. But then as things were really transitioning, I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do something. And I realized I was referring during those short sale days, I was referring all of these leads to real estate agents. I'm like, why am I leaving money on the table? So Jeff Glover of Jeff Glover of Jeff Glover and Associates, I had known him. He was on the billboards and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get my real estate license and I'm going to go learn from him. Because I said, in order to be the best, you got to learn from the best, right? So in 2013, my wife and I prayed and God said, okay, go make it happen. So got my license, joined his team. And, Jeff does things a little bit differently, with real estate. I had no pre-exposure to real estate. I thought it was just helping people buy and sell homes and cashing big checks. That's what I thought real estate was. And little did I know, when I met with Jeff, he said, well, we do things a little bit different here. Everybody has to start out on the phones making prospecting calls to expireds and for sale by owners for 90 to 120 days. And, at that time, I'm like, wait a minute, my telemarketing days are over. I don't want to be a telemarketer again. I want to be a real estate agent. And he said, well, if you trust me and you follow this process, Justin, he says, this is what everybody has to do in order to be on our team. We're the #1 real estate team in Michigan. Everybody does this. And he says, even though it's going to feel like you're taking a step back, he says, I promise you, if you'll trust me, he said, you'll be crushing it. And I said, okay, Jeff, well, I've got a wife and now 4 kids. We had just had our 4th child back in 2013. I said, how am I going to get paid? He says, well, you're not going to meet with any sellers and buyers for at least, 90 to 120 days. And we'll pay you $1,000 draw, and we'll give you a portion of the commission from the sale as you hand off the leads to the agent. But we're going to take half of that commission to pay back your draw. I'm like, what kind of deal is this? And so I left that day a little bit discouraged. But when I went home, my mentor at the time said, but Justin, do you think you could succeed there? I said, yes. He says, but did you ask him for what you need to be a part of his team? I said, no. He's like, go back and ask him. So I went back and I said, Jeff, I need at least $2,000 a month to come, join your team. He said yes. And then, did the 90 days of prospecting, got really good at it. And my first month in real estate, I took 30 listings. Second month, took 33 listings, put 9 under contract and sold 100 homes my first year. And 8 years later, here we are.
That's really impressive.
100 homes your first year solo?
Solo, yes, ma'am.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
That's crazy. Rockstar. Oh my gosh. I knew you were good.
That's awesome.
Wow. That's a very large accomplishment. That's impressive. You have a lot to be proud of. And I envy that.
Thank you. Yeah, what's funny is everybody thought I was crazy when I set my goal for the first year, because nobody at Jeff's office had ever sold 100 homes, period, let alone, besides Jeff, let alone their first year.
Right, yeah.
And, when I speak and teach agents, I always tell them, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks you can do. All that matters is what you think you can do. And I remember setting a goal that I was going to sell 100 homes, and it happened. And it didn't matter what anybody else thought, because I believed it was possible.
Oh my gosh, the law of attraction is so real.
Yes, ma'am.
It's all mindset. It's because you believed it.
Yep. Absolutely.
Justin, I just wanted to chime in here for a second. I just wanted to say you actually made a difference and impact on my life. When you came to Port Huron to just talk, you were with Glover. I believe you're still with them, correct? Still do seminars?
Yep.
Yeah, you came in and you made a speech, and just like, I don't know what it was. I think it's because I'm also a man of faith as well. And just like what you said, you were just laid it on the line. Like, normally people sugarcoat things and like, we're the best, look at my numbers, this and that. And you were just like, went out of your way to say like, hey, look where I came from. And then you brought up faith as well in a business setting. I was like, this guy's like breaking down some walls here. And I'm just like glued. And you like really like laser focus, like went right through me. I was just like, and I was like in the front row. It was a small crowd, but it was just like, it was just incredible. So I just wanted to thank you for that. I still look up to you as well. And I'll be joining you tonight on your live call as well on Facebook for the Proverbs 31-day challenge. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
well,
I want to thank you for that. Thank you for coming on. I wanted to ask you though, could you touch on cold calling? Oh, it's a two-sided question. First one is, were you afraid of cold calling at first, or kind of like you said you wanted to not get in to be a telemarketer? Is that correct?
Yeah, because, so even before I got into real estate, I was a travel agent. I was I was a legitimate like telemarketer, meaning, I legitimately, called the Cancer Fund of America. That was the name of it. And I called, the Cancer Fund, and we raised money, for cancer patients. And, there was, I was good at it, but I thought those days were over. So, when Jeff kind of told me, oh, by the way, this is what you're going to be doing, I thought I was going backwards. And I think it really had a lot to do with my ego and my pride.
Yeah.
I never really, and it's kind of strange, I don't think anybody likes to be rejected. And I think this is one of the number one reasons why people hesitate to get on the phone and make calls, especially cold calls, is because they're afraid of rejection, right? They're afraid of people telling them no, which nobody likes to be told no. But I've always been great on the phones, even when I was doing, raising money in telemarketing, even when I was doing, travel agency. I was always number one in everything that I did when it came to the phones. And so when when I moved over to starting to work with Jeff, I remember sitting in this office, this back room in his office for a week. And we did 5 days of like hardcore Mike Ferry training. I mean, 8 hours a day for the first 5 days. We were indoctrinated and endowed with Mike Ferry. And so after that 5 days, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's agents all over the country making millions of dollars a year from just calling expireds and for sale by owners. I'm like, I can do this. I was all fired up and excited. Well, that Monday came, and that was the day for me to get on the phones. And I was handed a script book. I was handed some leads and given a phone and said, okay, go get them. About 45 minutes into the calls, I was like, this sucks. And this is not what I signed up for. I am not doing this. And I mean, literally, I was about to quit 45 minutes into it because I just was like, this is not, I didn't align prospecting and making phone calls with being a real estate agent. That was not what I envisioned. But in that moment, I says, you know what? I don't really have much going for me right now. Where else am I going to go? What else am I going to do? And I made a decision in that moment that like I was going to succeed and I was going to make it happen. And that's when I made a decision, went all in, and just, took off.
Awesome. And then the second side of that question would be, what else would you recommend agents in general? They don't have to be necessarily new, just in general, especially with this market, it's like crazy shift. So everybody's kind of adjusting, obviously.
Yep.
What else would you recommend besides cold calling? Because I know you're so good at that. And I know that's like one of your main streams, but like, what else would you recommend as far as getting listings?
Yep. I think I was just sharing this with somebody on Clubhouse today. I was on the Clubhouse. And I think the number one thing we as agents have to do every single day is we have to talk to people, right? Whether that means, we're door knocking, whether it means we're, calling our sphere of influence, or we're going back to our database. We need to be having conversations every single day with people because we're in the people business. And the only way that we're going to get more listings or get more buyers is by having more conversations. And what's amazing is there's so many ways to do that, right? There's so many ways to have conversations. And so it all goes back to relationships. And so I know that everybody's always looking for the latest and greatest technique to take the path of least resistance to try to find business. But that's not the reality of this business. And so, for those that are watching that are looking for how do I get more business, go out and have more conversations. You can choose so many different ways to do that. the thing that causes anybody having a small pipeline or not enough deals or they're not making enough money is just they're not talking to enough.
Okay. That goes that goes right with phone calls though. So like, okay, call people. Gotcha.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's clearly working.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
like
I have
maybe reinvent the wheel, right?
Yeah. Jess, did you want to have a question for Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was wondering, is Michigan your forever home?
That's a great question. I'm also duly licensed in Florida as well. And if I picked up the phone right now and I called my wife and I said, honey, let's pack our bags, we're going to Florida. By the time I got home, she'd be packed and ready to go. She loves the heat. She loves Florida. With kids here, and I'll share something with you guys that you might not know. I'm a grandpa. So
Oh, congratulations.
yeah, I'm
That's
a grandpa.
awesome.
Probably don't look like a grandpa. I don't probably fit the grandpa profile. But my daughter, she's going to be 21 this year. She's getting married in about a month. And her and her fiance just had a baby boy. So I'm a grandpa. And so the thought of leaving Michigan anytime soon is not on the radar. But I think I'll always have a home here. I absolutely love Michigan. But we definitely plan on having homes in other places.
Absolutely. Well, my question was actually a two-part. The second was, so say it was Alaska you were moving to and you had to start all over again. What platforms and what kind of business model would you implement to build what you have in Michigan in another location?
Give me a phone and give me some leads, some for sale by owner and expired leads, and I'll sell 100 homes my first year. I mean, and I mean that, right? So I mean, I didn't even have a database. I didn't even have a database until 2 years ago. For my first 6 years in real estate, I never had a database. I never worked my past clients. I never worked my sphere. Wow. I only prospected, right? I mean, that was it. And that was my mindset until I hired a coach myself. She helped me to get a little bit more, have a little bit more leverage. But for me, it would be, that's it. Like, give me a phone, give me access to Vulcan 7, which is what I use to make my calls. And right. Give me for sale by owners and expireds, and I can go build what I've done in any other market.
That's incredible. That's so incredible. Awesome. Hey guys, there's a little bit of feedback. So if you guys are your cell phones, if you're on live, if the volume's up, we turn it down, just so we don't get that zinging sound in the background. So my next question is, let's talk about your book a little bit. What's going on with your book? I'm so intrigued. Let's hear a little bit about it because I know you're really proud of it.
Wait.
Yeah,
and we're proud of it for you. So let's talk about that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's funny because, I've been saved now for 19 years, and very early in my salvation, I just people began to tell me like, Justin, you're going to write a book someday, and, you're going to be an author and all of this. And, time went by, and then all of a sudden I just started getting all these confirmations like, hey, God told me to tell you, you need to start writing your book. And then when that happens 2 or 3 times, you're like, okay, I have to write this. Listen, I wasn't great in English class, even though I did pretty good. I'm not a writer by nature. And so, I met this public. Yeah, thank you. So I met this.
Let me write this down.
Yeah, I met this publisher. She's a Christian publisher. And she told me, she said, Justin, she says, you need to write a book because it's going to change people's lives, right? And, a lot of people want to be an author because they want to like make a lot of money and be famous and all that. I don't care about that part, right? So about 3 years ago, I started writing. And actually, I'll say about 7 or 8 years ago, I opened up my laptop and I started to write. And after 2 sentences, I didn't know what else to do. So I just got stuck and I closed my laptop. 5 years later, God says, no, you have to write this book. I said, okay. So I began to think, and I met with my publisher, and she said, just come up with some things that you can share your testimony, share your story, but then share, principles or, steps that people can apply to their life to help them also overcome things that they've struggled with in life. And so I just began to write it. And so the book is titled Unleashed. I began to think, before I became a Christian, I was really stuck in a lot of bondage. And, I was on drugs and alcohol. And between the ages of 17 and 19, I acquired 8 misdemeanors and a felony, all drug and alcohol related, sold drugs to an undercover cop, had 2 drunk drivings. One of them was a drunk driving accident where I almost lost my life. I overdosed, almost died. I got so far into this addiction and in this low place that I remember even this one time, when I was arrested in Royal Oak, I had been up partying for over 24 hours on cocaine and all these different types of drugs and alcohol. And I was just like, I go into jail and I'm so dehydrated, like I feel like I'm dying. They wouldn't give me any water. They just gave me this one little cup of juice. And when it was gone, they wouldn't give me anything else. And I was so low in this place of addiction that I thought I was going to die because I was so dehydrated that I took that cup and I dipped it in the toilet bowl in jail and began to drink water just to stay hydrated and to stay alive. And, those just some dark places that I was in. And I remember, getting into the drunk driving accident that I got in was like really the final straw. I fell asleep at the wheel, passed out. I blew a .21. I was about 3 times the legal limit. And all this happened by the time I was 19. And I got into an accident. I crashed my mom's car into the wall and I made it, right? I lived, but I don't even really remember it because I was so drunk that they took me to jail. I was already on, a restricted driver's license for my first drunk driving. I was on probation in like 4 cities. And in the natural, there's no way this judge is about to let me out. There's no way. I'm a menace to society. But I prayed and I asked God, I said, God, if you'll let me out without having to pay a bond, I'll give my life to you and I will live for you. And I go before the judge, still drunk. The guy, I was in there 2 days and these guys were like, man, you still reek of alcohol. This is, what were you drinking, right? And I go before the judge. He reads all the charges and everything. He looks at my record and he let me out. And this was in downtown Detroit because I got arrested in Detroit. So I hop on a smart bus from Detroit and literally take the bus out to this homeless shelter in Oakland County called Grace Centers of Hope. It's a Christian treatment center. And I checked myself in on May 7th, 2002. And I was 100% serious to holding up my end of the bargain, to God that, if you let me out, I'll live for you. Was in this homeless shelter for, about 6 months, and God met me there. Like, me and Jesus had an encounter. He truly saved me. He healed me. He delivered me from alcohol and drugs. And in that homeless shelter, he began to give me vision and purpose. 19 years ago is when I went in there, and in that homeless shelter, I was living in this this dorm room with all these guys, about 50 of us, all these guys. It was horrible. And I'm laying in my bunk bed, and the Lord begins to show me my future, right? He begins to show me the plans that he has for my life. He begins to show me the things that he's called me to do. And what's absolutely incredible is he showed me my future where I am today. He showed me successful. He showed me as a motivational speaker. He showed me being a leader and influencing people. He showed me that I'd be married to a beautiful woman and have kids. He showed me all of these things. And so in my book, what I talk about is how I went from this lifestyle where I was completely bound and in strongholds and bondages and addictions to God unleashing me, into this life that I'm now living. And so I wrote 7 key principles to breaking free and breaking through. And I share my story, but then I share these 7 key principles of how anybody can, no matter if it doesn't have to be the life that I was living, but it could be fear. It could be you're bound to unforgiveness. It could be, you're stuck in, complacency. And there's 7 principles that can literally be shared to any individual on how to really live the life that God has designed for you.
Can you share those 7 principles with us, or is that breaking any kind of rules of your book?
Yeah, no, I can 100% share it with you guys. And so you're the second. So I just shared this.
That question.
Yeah, I just shared this on a Clubhouse the other day. So I'll give you guys. So you're only the second people I've shared this with. But but I'm okay with it. And so principle number one is, in order to literally break free from the things that hold you back, is you really have to discover, why God created you. What is your purpose, right? Because every single individual was created intentional, right? God didn't make a mistake when he created you. He created you on purpose for a purpose. And I think so many people go through life and they have no clue why God created them, right? And so that's when I believe even for me, I remember when I was 15 years old, like it was yesterday, sitting on my porch at home, just feeling completely empty and lost. And I'm saying, God, there's got to be more to life than this. There has to be, right? And so I started pursuing drugs, and I started pursuing alcohol and sex and all these things just to be left empty. And I had no purpose, right? But when I discovered my purpose, it transformed my life. And so I go through this, this chapter on discovering your purpose and giving people practical steps with biblical verses and prayer at the end of how to really discover your purpose. Number two is you have to really just find out what God's vision is for your life. Vision is the thing that God gave me when I was laying in that bunk bed, at the homeless shelter. He gave me a vision of my future, right? He gave me a vision of my future. And the Bible is so clear about writing down the vision and making it plain, but it also says people perish, right? When you don't have vision, people perish, right? It's like you walk around aimlessly in life, just not really knowing, what you're there for. But when you pray and ask God to give you a vision, he does. Number three is really, you have to come into a place of forgiveness, whether it's forgiving yourself or forgiving the people that have hurt you. So many people are bound in unforgiveness and bitterness and anger. And I carried that, right? So these are steps that God took me through to get me where I am. And I held so much unforgiveness towards my parents, so much unforgiveness towards my daughter's mom, so much unforgiveness towards so many people. And I liken unforgiveness and bitterness to like having a chain wrapped around your leg, right? It's a stronghold. And the devil wants it to be a stronghold in your life so he can keep you from being unleashed and breaking free. And so I go through this chapter of sharing my own story of how I had to work through forgiving the people that hurt me. And I share a part of the story in there, how my dad, who was very physically and emotionally abusive to me, my parents divorced when I was 2. I moved in with him when I was 12. And I just held so much anger. He was an alcoholic. So much anger and bitterness towards him, so that when I became an adult, and there was just this one time that I just felt like he was talking to me like I was 12 again or 13 again. And I just went off on him on the phone. I just went off and I just let him have it. And you know what he said? He said, "Son, I'm so sorry. I never knew you felt that way." And that whole time, here I am, like bound in anger and bitterness and all of this stuff. And the person I'm holding it against has no clue that I'm even feeling that effect, right? And so it's almost like a trap of the enemy. And even the Bible says, how can God forgive us if we don't forgive other people? Mm-hmm. So I talk about that. Number 4 is really mentorship, right? Being able to surround yourself with mentors, advisors, and counselors. I'm doing this Proverbs 31-day challenge, and all through Proverbs, Solomon talks about, the importance of surrounding yourself with people who can advise you and mentor you and help you along the way. And when I went into that homeless shelter on May 7th, 2002, God sent my first mentor into that same homeless shelter on May 9th, 2002. He sent an African-American 40-year-old man named Dwayne, who grew up in the church, but had gotten off track into addiction. And he came to the same homeless shelter that I was at and literally took me under his wing and mentored me. He discipled me. He taught me the Bible. He's the one that really helped me to build a foundation in Christ. And then when I got out of that homeless shelter, the Lord just began to send all these other mentors in my life. And I think especially as men, we think we can do it all, or we got to figure it out on our own. So we need to humble ourselves and understand the importance of mentorship. Number 5 is, we have to understand that there's a process, right? When you get saved, there's a process. When God showed me the vision of where I would be, down the road, where I am today, he never showed me everything that I would have to go through in order to get where I am. Because if he did, I probably would have hit the abort button. Like, I'm out. I'm not going down that path, because it has been difficult, right? Even when you become a Christian, like, it's difficult, right? Becoming a Christian doesn't mean like everything's going to be easy. A lot of times it means it's going to be harder. And so understanding that there's a process that takes place in order for you to go from where you are to become the person that God is calling you to be. And that happens by going through trials and tribulations, and through those hardships and through those trying times, right? Our character is developed, right? Our character is developed. God begins to mold us and shape us and help us, right? And then number 6 is, I'm trying to think, I got them written down here. Let me just grab them.
No worries.
Because I think I either skipped one, or let me see here. Hold on one second. I've got them.
Well, you're
right
on
here.
5, so
Yeah, we are on 5. I might, let me just see here. I've got it right here. Let's see. Okay, here it is. Let's see. So I gave you guys number 1, which was discovering your purpose. Gave you number 2, which was vision. I gave you number 3, which was forgiveness. I gave you guys number 4, which was mentorship. I gave you guys number 5, which is
process.
Yeah, understanding the process. And honestly, guys, for me, that one, and this is for anybody, right? This isn't just for people who are Christian, right? This is for anything that you set out to do, right? Like, when I got on the phones that first day to begin, prospecting, right? I wasn't going to just go, and just crush it on day one. There was a process that I had to go through to learn what to say, how to say it, learn how to become a real estate agent. So process, I think, is where most people, get tripped up, because they don't want to pay the price. Like, there's a price that we have to pay to get to where we want to go. And most people don't want to pay the price. They just want the outcome. They just don't want to do what it takes to get there. So number 6, here it is being freed from fear, right? Fear, I believe, holds so many people back. And I, being a real estate coach, I talk to so many people when it comes to, teaching people how to prospect. So many people are afraid. Like, I had a girl reach out to me the other day, and she's like, Justin, I just can't pick up the phone. Like, I'm so afraid. Like, well, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid that I'm going to mess up, or I'm afraid that people are going to tell me no. I'm like, why does that cause so much fear in your life? And so I realized that there were certain fears in my life that were holding me back. And I think fear paralyzes people from really stepping out into what God has called them to do. And the reason why is because people don't want to fail, right? People are more afraid to fail than to take the chance and say, well, at least I tried. And for me, I've always been the type to, I'm going to do it no matter what. And if I fail, that's okay, right? And so I talk about how fear really holds people back from becoming who God created them to be. And I talk about how fear is a spirit, right? The Bible says that God did not give us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. So I go through that. And then last but not least, number 7, I call it the doorway to destiny. And the doorway to destiny is this: you can't even become who God created you to be until you have a relationship with him. And so in principle number 7, I talk about how, Jesus came to this earth and he died on the cross for our sins. And I talk about how, we must be born again, right? If you want to really live your best life, then you need to know the one who created you. And so I just, I do an altar call in my book, and I just, I call out to people to give their lives to Jesus. And this whole book, my prayer with the book is that God uses it to save souls and set people free from addictions and strongholds, and that the book would really help people break free and break through.
That's really awesome. I admire you so much. And something that the guys don't know about me, I was actually, growing up, I was Mormon, and I went to seminary all 4 years of high school. We went through both books of Mormon and obviously the Old Testament and the New Testament. So that's something that I fell away from very early on and kind of got into a lot of drugs and a lot of drinking. And marrying my husband was one of the best things I ever did to get me out of that life. So we definitely have a very good relationship with God. So I value you. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Amen. Amen. And I get fired up, guys, when I talk about this stuff. So sorry if I'm taking the stage, but
Not at all. Don't ever, oh my gosh, don't apologize. This is amazing. And I'm so glad that you're sharing all this with us. And thank you for allowing us to be the second to hear it. That's
absolutely
incredible.
Yeah,
You're
I
honored.
had a quick question for you since we are talking about faith.
Yeah.
As a man of faith as well, how do you balance that with business? Because you're so well with it, you're so open about it and free about it. But a lot of people, I personally feel like one of my other mentors, Gogo, she says you need to find your tribe.
Yep.
And in order to do that, you need to be yourself and find the people. But early when I first got into the career, my mom, she's also a huge woman in the faith. She's like one of my rocks. But she was like, Ryan, you got to be careful on what you say, on Facebook and being on business. And that goes with like politics as well. But
Yeah.
you were just like so open about it and you're still killing it. So could you touch on that, the balance?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think we're living in a culture right now where people are so afraid to talk about religion and politics, right? We've always been told, don't mix religion and politics with business.
Right.
Don't talk about religion and politics on social media. You know what? Jesus is my life. He's the center of it, right? And, you see people talk about, all the things that matter to them on social media, right? Whether it's, hey, I'm in the bar for happy hour, or, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. I mean, what's the most important part of your life when you're in faith, right? It should be your relationship with the Lord. And I think there needs to be a balance, right? Because you don't want to be that guy or gal that's just like shoving it down people's throat. But I think for me, when Jesus saved me, like he really, really saved me. Like the life that I was living to who I am today, like I can only but talk about it. But here's, and I've been sharing this. So we're doing a prayer, do a prayer call every morning for anybody in the real estate industry at 7:30 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And it's growing every day. And what we do is we just come together, we pray for each other's businesses. We pray for, the industry, we pray for God to bless our business. But here's a specific thing that I always share, Ryan, is when you're a believer and you really have a relationship with the Lord, then everything that you need, every deal that you get, everything, all the success that you have comes from the Lord.
Oh,
like
sure.
He's my provision source. So I depend on him, right, to send business my way, not Zillow, not realtor.com,
Right.
not even my prospecting calls, right? And so to me, it's like at the end of the day, if someone decides that they don't want to work with me because I'm a Christian, that's fine. Because if they're a homosexual or they're a Muslim or they're an atheist, I'm still going to work with them. I'm not going to judge them based on that. But if they decide that they don't want to work with me because I talk about Jesus too much, then that's just somebody that I was never meant to work with in the first place.
Right.
And what's so great about that, though, is you'll start attracting the right people in your life.
Absolutely. And honestly, it's happening in every area of my life right now. In the prayer that I pray every morning, Ryan, and for anybody that's watching this, that's a believer, I encourage you to do this. It's the same thing. My prayer every morning is, God, when people think of real estate, let them think of Justin Ford, right? When people think of EXP, let them think of Justin Ford. When buyers are considering buying, Lord, whisper my name in their ear. When people are looking to sell their home, God, let them think of me. And when I started praying this way, even 30 days ago, I'm getting repeat referral business almost every day. I've already taken 11 listings this month. Business is exploding, and it's because I had to shift even my own mindset to know where my true source of revenue and business comes from, and it's the Lord. So I'm okay sharing, my faith because he's my provider anyway. And I've noticed that when I put him first in everything that I do, he takes care of the rest.
Amen to that. That was great. Thank you so much for that.
gosh, this is so crazy.
I didn't realize that until this year, to be honest with you. So like I had to ask you that question because I'm like, man, that's so big. You know, because when he consumes your life, you know, like, you know, he comes in there and it's like it's everything I do. So it's like, and because I'm getting ready to make my bio like video about me, it's like I have to talk about that. Like I just can't leave that off, otherwise I'm lying. You know what I'm saying? Because
it's true.
It affects everything I do. You know, well, I try to have him centered around that, obviously. You know, so it's like if I don't bring him up, then like it's just a phony. You know what I'm saying? So I was really wanted to ask you that question. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's a great question.
I love that.
I do have another quick one. Why did you leave Keller Williams and come to EXP?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I didn't leave Keller Williams to come to EXP. I left Keller Williams and started my own independent brokerage for 4 years. And so I was independent for 4 years. And well, I'll answer it from, you know, why I left my independent brokerage to come to EXP. And it's probably a real straightforward answer, but it's honestly because God told me to. I said no to EXP for 4 years, and I was one of those guys that said I will never go to EXP. Right? I'm never going. Don't want nothing to do with it. Don't like the colors. Don't like the logo. That's a cult. I don't want nothing to do with it. Right? And when I started my brokerage, my vision was the exact same thing as EXP. Even before I knew about EXP, I created a comp plan for my brokerage that was 7 levels deep that would pay people revenue share, right? Because I love the model of residual income and revenue share. And so I created this model and then I'm presenting it to an agent in California. He's like, yeah, that sounds like just like EXP. I said, EX what? What are you talking about? So I did my research and I'm like, okay, this is my competition now. So it was like I was in competition, but I built up this brokerage, had all these people working for me, and I wasn't happy, right? I wasn't happy, and I wasn't making any money because all the money I was making was going back into the, to the business. And so after a couple of years, God just began to rearrange my business, and I went more from being a brokerage to being a solo, like little team of my own brokerage. Had a great year last year, sold 125 homes, did 31 million in personal volume, crushed it last year, and God said, okay, it's time to move to EXP. And so I looked at the business model, which all those years I was saying no, I didn't know what I was saying no to, right? I was just saying no because of my pride and ego. But once I really looked at the model, and you guys know this because they say it, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Right.
Once I saw it and everything they had to offer, I'm like, this is exactly why I left Keller Williams to start my own company, because I wanted to create revenue share. I wanted to create freedom. I wanted to create this business model that I could connect and partner with other real estate agents all over the country. And so back in January, I moved over to EXP, and here we are.
Well, you're definitely not alone on that. A lot of people are in the same boat. And then the logo's better now. So that kind of worked out.
So much better.
And your colors are you're still rocking with that. So I think it's the same colors, correct? That you were.
Yep, the black and the white. Yep.
Can't go wrong. Classic.
I love the new logo, by the way.
Me too. I got really excited by it. I'm like, can't say no, I didn't like it. Then it switched. I'm like, yes, finally. Yeah. I prayed about it too. It was a big decision for me too.
Yep.
And I didn't even with my first brokerage I went with, like you're supposed to shop around, which I'm all about, and I tell new agents do that. I literally didn't. I just prayed about it, went with my gut.
Yep.
Best decision until I saw this. And then as soon as I saw it too, my buddy just mentioned it. Believe it or not, he didn't pitch me. He just mentioned it. I'm like, right away, I'm like, this feels right. You know what I'm saying? So, so I can definitely relate with that as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I was the same. I didn't even bother taking my real estate exam until I knew that I was going to find somewhere decent to hang my hat. It took me a while. So I shopped around. I was like, maybe this isn't for me. And then EXP fell in my lap. I was like, yep, this is the one. You got to follow your gut when it comes to business.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an instinct.
Yep.
Right. So It's pretty cool. It's really interesting. So I have a question. Let's say, I have so many questions. I don't even know which one.
Yeah. I know. I was like, man, I got so many too, but I was like, Ryan, just be quiet. Let everybody have their turn. Go ahead.
Oh my gosh. I mean, how do you keep how do you keep as upbeat? I mean, I already know your answer, but how do you keep yourself and then how do you keep your team motivated on a daily basis to keep producing and to keep growing?
Yeah, I mean, and we know as believers, right? Not every day is you're not on the mountaintop every day. Some days you're in the valley. And for the last 19 years, I've had to learn how to show up regardless of how I feel. Show up even if it's a rainy day, show up even if I don't feel like it, and really do my best to, especially when you're a leader, right? You're going to have bad days, but you can't let your bad day affect the people that you're leading, right? You can't bring all of your negativity that you're experiencing or whatever you're going through into your team, because that'll be given to your team as well. And for me, when I look at the things that I do to really try to stay positive on a regular basis, because I have my days, but I think I've just learned over time to discipline, my disappointment or discipline myself when I'm having a bad day. And so I'm really so grateful for like mentors in my life. Like I'm surrounded by absolutely incredible mentors. I have spiritual advisors and other advisors in my life. And so if I ever find myself really going through and I feel negative or feeling beat up by life, I go to those people and they pray for me, they pour into me, they minister to me. My wife, being married to someone who is so super supportive and really there to help me. And even though that took a few years, because we'll be married 16 years this year, was, we really had I had to learn how to trust her from the standpoint of that she never gave me a reason not to trust her, but I had to trust that when she speaks something and it maybe counters what I believe or direction I think I should go, that I should really understand that a lot of times God speaks through my wife to help cause me from not going the way we're not supposed to go, and or making a decision that I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, but she's like, no, I don't feel this. It took me a long time to get to a point where I really trusted that in her. And so, but where we are today, I really lean on her a lot, if I'm ever going through some things, she's been a big support for me. But also, again, my relationship with the Lord, right? We, even in the midst of hardship and trials and tribulations in life, because it happens. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is in James chapter 1, where it says to count it all joy. Even when you're going through trials and tribulations, and I never used to understand how in the world can you count it all joy when your world is falling apart alongside of you. How do you count it all joy when you're going through the fire and the trials of life? When I learned about that process, like going through these things is for the good, right? Romans 8:28 says, and we know God causes all things to work together for the good to those that love him and have been called according to his purpose. And so I started to realize that even when the days that things aren't working right, or even when I'm going through these hard times, God, you're doing something in me and around me. And so I really stand on the word that says this is working together for my good. So it's crazy to think, but it kind of encourages me to know that this is just a part of the process that I have to go through to get where he's taking me.
I love that. I think like you touched on that earlier too, where you said you can't move forward by being the person that you are today. You have to make changes. And
100%.
there are so many sacrifices that we have to make. And it's really difficult to give those up.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's people, it's loved ones, it's experiences, it's friends, it's addiction. I also grew up with a father who was an alcoholic, and he was saved by God. And that's how
Amen.
I thank every day for that. And it's just one of those stepping stones. And sometimes it feels like there are some of the worst moments in your life, but what you realize in the future is it was another stepping stone.
Amen. God uses everything.
Everything.
Absolutely incredible. And it's a great feeling knowing that at the end, everything's going to be okay.
It is.
It's encouraging to me, to be honest with you, because it's like, I know he's put me through this for a reason, and I know it's going to be stronger. Like, I'm very blessed with that. I pray a lot for, Lord, give me your eyes, and Lord, give me your wisdom and courage and stuff like that, like David had when he faced Goliath. And
Yep.
it really gets me through a lot of things. And like, so like, I don't really like, yeah, obviously sucks in the time, we're human, but
Yep.
like truly, like because my valleys, if you will, seem to be kind of long, unfortunately. You said that day, I was like, oh, mine's a lot longer than a day, but
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
you meant by that though.
Yeah.
But so like, that's what I hang my head on. It's just like, I know this is for a reason. It's not up for debate, And
Right.
it's like, man, if he doesn't give you anything he doesn't think you can handle. So it's just like encouraging. I thank him often for, everything he's given me, everything I currently have, and then all the most important part, what he's already going to give to me. I just haven't
Yep.
received it yet, and that's all part of the journey to get there. So I can
But-
definitely relate with that as well.
But think about it. That shift in your mindset changes everything, because we're going to have to go through regardless, right? You might as well look at it from that perspective than dreading it and kicking your feet and throwing, just getting all out of sorts. But God, I trust you. And it really goes back to faith and trust, right? Like,
Right.
Do we really believe what the Bible says? Do we really believe that God's going to bring us through? Do we really trust in him that this is working together for the good? And if we do, then it's going to be a lot easier to go through, because we're leaning on him than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. That's amazing. So do you guys have any questions? Because I have more.
You can go ahead.
We can keep going,
I
but
could talk to Justin all day, so it's like,
I know.
but you can go ahead for sure.
For the hour. So if you were to start over, anything at all, what would you do differently? If you could choose,
Ooh.
like what would you do? What if
Wait,
you
hold on. Start over in his career or start over? Because I already know you wanted to get saved earlier.
I don't know. I mean, I guess we could maybe touch a little bit on both. Like, what would you really do to change your life? What would you do
Yep.
to do something differently if you could?
Yeah. I get asked this question, quite a bit. And I know my answer is probably not going to be the one you're looking for, but I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't, because God's perfect plan for our lives works out exactly the way that it's supposed to. And I'll tell you this. So I had a mentor, and he's still a mentor. One of my first mentors after, coming out of the homeless shelter, and very successful man. And I'm at his house, and I admire him because, he grew up in a Christian home. Like, it was his dad and his mom that came from Italy to the States, and they were raised in the Lord. And I would always look at my pastor's kids. I'm like, I wish that this is what I would say. Like, I wish I grew up in a Christian home. You know what he said to me that changed my whole perspective on that? He says, Justin, you might not have grown up in a Christian home, but God saved you to change the entire trajectory of your family line. He said, God picked you, and he says, Justin, I'm gonna take your life, and I'm gonna change the direction of your lineage. I'm gonna change the direction of your legacy. I'm gonna change the direction, of everyone that comes after you. And it just totally shifted on how I looked at it, because I'm like, you know what, God, you had a perfect plan for this. If you wanted me to have been, grown up in a home that was a Christian home, I would have. But you chose me to be the one that changes the direction of my family lineage. And now my kids, go to Christian school, they're saved, they love the Lord. And you know what? My grandson, he's going to love the Lord. And it's like, I wouldn't change anything. I really wouldn't, because God has me where I am today, and everything that has happened in my life has led me to here, and I wouldn't change a thing.
The perfect answer once again.
It was, and you were wrong. That was the answer that I thought you were going to say.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure, because I know sometimes someone's like, "What would you change?" And I'm like,
right. I was going to say, we should rephrase that. If you had to change something, what would it be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
Ryan, do you have anything you want to ask?
Well, I just want to make sure before we go, I wanted to make sure he said when his book's coming out, where can people get it and stuff like that. But
Of course.
Yeah. So it should be in the next 60 days. I've actually been, the thing it's been funny, because again, it took 3 years to get to this point, because I'm the type of person where I have to really feel like something is the timing of something is right. And so I finished the actual writing of my book last year, but I've went out and I've been asking certain people to leave endorsements that I can put in the book. But then I've been waiting. God spoke to me and he said, Justin, I want you to go and get all of your mug shots and put them in the book so people can really see where you really came from. Now, I haven't seen any of my mug shots before, but I've been reaching out to, because I was arrested 13 times in 2 years. So I've got a lot of mug shots. And so I'm actually gathering all 13 mug shots to put in the book. And so once I have those, which I almost have all of them, we'll be sending the book to final publishing because it's already been edited and it should be out in the next 60 days.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, I actually seen one of them, the one you were like bleeding down the side. I was like, wow. That's incredible.
Yeah, the cops beat me up. I was handcuffed and about 4 or 5 of them were just kind of taking turns, and that actually, I have the scar obviously still, and they were bashing my head off of a brick wall. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But honestly, I was running my mouth, calling them all types of names.
We'll go with that.
I was drunk and acting stupid. But I mean, they still shouldn't have, did what they did. But again, like here I am today, and that happened for a reason, so people can really see where I was and how Jesus has changed me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, this is just absolutely, I think I can speak for everybody when I say nobody's perfect, right? We all go through ups and downs. But the fact that you are so open about yours and it's not a secret, and you're okay with talking about that is extremely humbling. So that's very cool.
And if I can add to that, I think so many people are afraid to talk about their past because they're ashamed, they're embarrassed. And I think as people, we want everybody to see the good side of us and the best side of us because we care and worry about too much of what people think about us. Mm. And I want to challenge anybody that's watching this right now, share your past, right? Share the things you've gone through because God has given you a testimony for a reason, and you never know who needs to hear it. You never know the lives that will be impacted by you sharing your story. And there's a saying that says, how can you have a message without going through the mess? And how can you have a testimony without first going through the tests, right? And so it doesn't matter what anybody thinks, right? I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't care what anybody says about me because I know who I am and whose I am. And at the end of the day, God has given me his story. And he says that we overcame them by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. God has given us all a testimony. And if we don't share it, we'll never know the lives that could have been impacted around us by us just sharing our testimony, right? Because it's a part of God's story in us. And so I've always been bold to share. And, I just ask that God would use my story to encourage and inspire somebody else.
Well, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
It was absolutely incredible.
It really is. And I think that's exactly what you're doing, Justin, is you're just so, you're so open about it. And when I first came across you, I wasn't aware that you were a Christian. I was like, oh, he's just, he's in real estate. And then I realized it was actually Ryan who informed me that you had your 31 days.
Huge fan.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea. And I realized how much you have in common with the number one man that I look up to on a daily basis, my father. And it drew me in. Yeah. And it just having that extra support on a daily basis means so much. And I know you're changing lives and you don't even realize it, which is fantastic.
Appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely.
You really did honor us with your presence being here. So we really appreciate it.
It really was.
Absolutely.
It's an honor
up.
It's been an honor to be here, guys, and I always appreciate. I don't take it lightly when someone asks me to be on a podcast or to speak. I mean, I take that very serious, and it's definitely always an honor.
Thank you so much. So, what do you want in closing? This was absolutely incredible, as we all agree. What do you want the world to know? Where's Justin Ford going to be in the future? What's going on?
Yeah. So, God, again, it goes back to like the things that God has called you to do, pursue them. Go all in. Don't be afraid. God has a plan for each one of us. And once you begin to identify it, don't allow fear, don't allow any of those things to hold you back. I really believe that my big calling is to really motivate and inspire people on a high level. I really believe that, God has placed me within the real estate industry to bring, the kingdom of God to this industry, just like you guys, right? I mean, God is raising up a people, right, to be a light and an example and be unashamed of the testimony that He's given us, because there's people in this industry that need Jesus, and He's strategically placed each one of us here. And so doors are starting to open up for me to speak and to travel and do all of these things. And so I'm just excited about what is ahead, and I just put it in His hands, and I don't know where it all goes, but I'm willing to go wherever He wants me to go.
One day at a time.
One day at a time.
That's it.
Yep.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you so much, Justin. This was an absolute honor. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy week and your family life. I know you have a beautiful wife and kids at home. So thank you so much for honoring us with your presence today. And that it was absolutely incredible. So hopefully we can have you on again, because we love speaking with you. We would love to have you as a multiple repeat guest.
Agreed.
It'd be incredible. There's so many things we could talk about for hours.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been great. So thank you so much again. And
thank you.
Anything that we can ever do, the three of us.
Yeah. Seriously.
Let's all do lunch. We should do lunch.
Absolutely. Poor Jeff in
done.
Carolina, but we're in Michigan. I'm local to you. And then Ryan's just in Port Huron. So we would love to do that.
We should. And we can bring Jessica, just put her on Zoom.
Epic.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
FaceTime, Zoom, something,
Yeah.
Problem solved.
It'd be lovely.
Yeah,
I'll just come to Michigan. It'll be okay. I'll make a
There
trip.
we go. Let's do it.
Awesome.
It's a business trip. It'll be okay.
Awesome. Yeah.
You can write that one off, Jess. Don't worry about it.
Yep.
What time are you coming on tonight, Justin?
Probably around like between 9 and 9:30. It's
Okay.
It always depends, somewhere in there, but yeah, between 9 and 9:30.
Okay, sounds good.
And then how do people, I want to talk about that real quick too. How do people find you on your 31 days? How do people find you on Clubhouse? I mean, when do you go live? Let's talk about that before we hop off here.
Yep. So I do a Proverbs 31-day challenge all this month. We're basically going through the book of Proverbs and reading one chapter a day. So we'll be doing Proverbs chapter 17 today. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Clubhouse. And I try to keep the name the same. It's just the official Justin Ford, because I thought I was special and like unique and one of a kind. And then you type my name in social media and there's like 100 Justin Ford. So I had to make it at least be the official Justin Ford. So you can find me. Yep, and you'll just see my my big smiling face on there, and I'd love to connect. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And then when it comes to your book, where do people buy your book? Where's it going to be sold? How do we get it?
It's going to be all over. It's going to be on Amazon. It's going to be in Barnes and Nobles. It's going to be in Walmart. My publisher is putting it everywhere, but also we're going to do a book release, right? So we're actually going to do a book release. I'd love for you guys to come, if you guys can make it.
There.
So I'll be putting that invitation out real soon. And so everybody's welcome to come to that. I'd love for anybody to come to that. And, I'm in the process, I'm praying about it, but I think I'm going to take a percentage of the book sales and actually give it back to the homeless shelter that I came from, because they still have a great program there. And I often go speak back to the men and share my story and, show them what's possible when they live for Jesus. And so I'm really, I'm looking to do that. I'm just waiting to kind of communicate with them, but a portion of the proceeds will actually go back to support that homeless shelter that I came out of.
That's awesome. I actually watched one of your videos on that when you went back. I think it was last summer. I think it was.
Yep.
So that was really good too. I try to keep up on the up. Anytime you post something, I get intrigued about it.
I appreciate
that's awesome. That's so good to do that, because you appreciate where you came from, how they helped you out in a low time in your life. So it's like a lot of people just take that and take what they can and just move on to the next thing. So that's awesome that you did that. It separates you from some other people. And I know that's not why you do it. It's just so genuine. That's why, I feel like not just myself, but like so many people resonate with you. It's just because you wear it on your sleeve and you're just like nothing to hide. You're proud of it. And that's just like, honestly, I look up to you about it because it's like very honorable to do that. It's awesome.
Thanks, my man. I appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, guys. So in
Yeah.
closing, thank you so much again for checking out the podcast with us. And we'll have you on again soon.
I would love to.
Very cool. All right, guys.
See you guys. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.